The silence inside the intensive care unit became almost unbearable. Every monitor continued its relentless rhythm, but each sound seemed to remind everyone that time was slipping away. Ethan Sterling, the only son of billionaire Adrian Sterling, lay motionless beneath crisp white sheets, his skin pale, his breathing supported by machines that represented the very pinnacle of modern medicine. Around him stood some of the world's finest specialists, cardiologists, neurologists, genetic researchers, and critical care experts, each carrying years of experience and shelves filled with awards. Yet none of them could explain why a perfectly healthy 12-year-old boy had suddenly collapsed weeks earlier and continued drifting further from life despite every available treatment. Adrian had spared no expense. Private jets had flown in renowned physicians from every continent. Experimental therapies had been approved overnight. Entire laboratories had redirected their resources toward Ethan's mysterious illness. Millions of dollars disappeared every day in the desperate search for a cure. But wealth, influence, and power could not persuade life to cooperate. The doctors no longer argued over treatment plans. Instead, they quietly discussed comfort measures and prepared the grieving father for the possibility that the miracle he prayed for might never come. Adrian refused to accept their words. He sat beside Ethan's bed every night, holding the boy's limp hand, replaying happier memories in his mind, the fishing trips, birthday celebrations, soccer games, and evenings when Ethan laughed so hard he could barely breathe. The hospital staff had never seen a man so powerful look so helpless. Outside, reporters crowded the entrance around the clock, broadcasting updates that captivated millions. Social media overflowed with messages of hope and prayer, while others debated whether even unlimited wealth had limits. Yet inside the hospital, none of that mattered. Every heartbeat on the monitor carried more value than the billionaire's entire fortune. Across the city, under a weathered bridge where dozens of homeless families struggled to survive, a 14-year-old boy named Noah finished dividing the small bag of bread he had collected that morning. Before taking a bite himself, he handed most of it to an elderly veteran who hadn't eaten in 2 days, then shared the remaining pieces with 2 younger children. Hunger had become so familiar that Noah barely noticed it anymore. What he couldn't ignore was the pain he saw in others. Despite owning almost nothing, he somehow found ways to give. His mother had once told him that kindness was the only treasure nobody could steal. She had passed away years earlier, leaving him with nothing except those words and an old silver pendant that never left his neck. Later that afternoon, Noah wandered toward the hospital district, hoping generous visitors might offer spare change or leftover meals. As he approached the enormous medical center, he noticed television crews broadcasting live. Curious, he listened from a distance as a reporter explained that the billionaire's son had only hours left according to several specialists. Something about the photograph displayed on the screen caught Noah's attention. The boy's face seemed strangely familiar, though he couldn't understand why. A strange feeling settled in his chest, one he couldn't explain. Instead of leaving, he stood quietly across the street, watching the building with unusual focus. At the same moment, inside the hospital, Ethan's condition suddenly worsened. Alarms erupted across the room as nurses rushed forward. Doctors shouted urgent instructions while medications were prepared within seconds. Adrian stepped backward against the wall, unable to breathe as he watched the frantic efforts unfold. Minutes felt like hours before the alarms finally slowed, but the chief physician's expression revealed the painful truth. They had managed to stabilize Ethan temporarily, but his body was losing the fight. The lead doctor gently approached Adrian and spoke words no father ever wants to hear. "We've reached the limits of everything medicine can offer." Adrian stared blankly, refusing to process the sentence. There had to be another hospital, another expert, another possibility. There always had been. Until now. Meanwhile, outside, Noah noticed a nurse leave through the employee entrance, tears visible in her eyes. Without thinking, he approached her and quietly asked, "Is the boy going to die?" The nurse looked at the ragged teenager standing before her. Normally she would have hurried past, but something in his voice made her stop. She nodded sadly. Noah lowered his eyes before whispering something that made the exhausted nurse freeze. I know what's wrong with him." She stared at him in disbelief. "What did you say?" Noah hesitated, suddenly unsure whether anyone would believe someone dressed in torn clothes and worn-out shoes. "It's probably nothing," he murmured. But the nurse insisted he repeat himself. He explained that years earlier his mother had cared for a traveler who became sick with symptoms almost identical to those being described on television. Everyone believed the illness was incurable until an elderly healer noticed something everyone else had overlooked. The nurse wanted to dismiss the story as impossible, yet desperation had changed the rules. She quietly led Noah toward a side entrance, hoping at least one doctor might listen before sending him away. Security guards immediately stepped forward, blocking the boy's path. One glanced at Noah's dirty clothes and firmly ordered him to leave the property. Noah apologized and turned to walk away. Before he could disappear, the nurse interrupted, insisting that someone should at least hear him. The guards exchanged doubtful looks while contacting the administration. Upstairs, Adrian sat alone beside Ethan, unaware that a homeless teenager carrying nothing but hope was waiting downstairs, about to challenge everything the world's greatest doctors believed possible.